Okay, we are live. Good morning, Maggie.
Good morning.
Mhm.
Hi.
Hi.
What's everybody's name? Oh wait, it's listed on there. Never mind. Um, can you tell me one thing, Jane?
Yes.
When, because I don't, you sent me the bulletin, but I don't want to get out of this screen and like mess something up because I was having technical difficulties earlier. The benediction, when is the thing right before the, is it a hem? Is it a
Oh, yes. Yeah, so it's a hymn, Take My Life.
take my life? Okay.
And if you don't seem to respond, I'll just ask you to give the benediction.
Okay.
Wait a moment.
Okay.
Good morning, Mary Jean Corsmo.
Well, good morning, Lisa. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi. Hi, Julie.
Good morning.
I'm happy to see you.
Hi, Mercedes and Torsten.
Hi. I'm smiling now. That's good.
Oh, hi. Oh,
Guy, do you see those people in there talking to you?
Yeah.
Oh, man. He's growing so fast.
I know, and everybody's using it.
Yeah.
You see him licking. He has 2 new bottom teeth, so he licks them like that. He's feeling the teeth. Really funny.
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, he's getting to be a little human.
Yeah.
He's got that baby look rather than teeny tiny newborn look.
Yeah.
Hi.
Good morning, Anne.
Good morning, Jane.
Hi, Anne.
Hi. Oh, hi, Mary Jean. Hi, Mercedes.
Hi.
Oh, hey, Torsten. He's gotten so big.
Mhm.
Hello.
Hi.
Good morning, Clyde.
Good morning.
Hi, Clyde.
Hi, how are you today?
Doing well, thank you.
Hi, Bonnie.
Oh.
Hi, Bonnie. Hi, Jean.
Hi.
Morning.
Morning.
Hi, Jane.
Hi, Clyde. Nice to see you.
Good to see you again.
It's nice to see the inside of the church.
Yes, I'm glad I made it here this morning. It's very peaceful here. And a tiny bit lonely without all of you.
I imagine.
But I can, you're here in spirit. I know you are.
In my favorite spot.
Mm-hmm. Good morning, Glenn. And Greg.
Oh, good morning. There we go.
Hi, Glenn.
Hi,
Morning.
Glenn. Hi, Greg.
Morning, everybody.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, should we put him in the stroller on there? Okay, I'll be back. We've got a chicken situation.
Oh my goodness.
Chicken situation.
Living a farm life now, so she has chicken situations.
Sounds dire.
Sounds like a novel or a short story.
I lost you guys for a minute there.
Oh gosh, I'm glad you're back, Laura.
It froze and then it was like connecting, and then I was like, come on, there's 5 minutes.
Oh yes. Everyone, this is Laura Kanata. She's our guest preacher this morning. She's awesome. And
Hi, Laura. Welcome.
Hi.
Good morning, Laura. Nice to see you.
Good morning.
Hi, Laura.
And Laura, I have my cell phone. If anything goes crazy with your internet and you need to text me, I'll be ready to get a text or something. So
Okay, then I'm gonna go grab my cell phone
okay.
because I put it on the other side of the room. I'll be right back.
I used to refuse to bring my cell phone into worship, but now
Now you need it.
A friend of mine who goes to Burning Man, or when it was going on, I saw pictures of her there was a phone booth in the middle of the desert where you could talk to God. And so a lot of people took advantage of direct line.
What's the charge for that? Is that a quarter or?
No, it's a local call.
Used to be drop a dime, but then
It worked for Moses.
God is local to the desert. I love that.
What for Moses?
It worked for Moses without the phone booth.
True.
He had to
you guys
cover
talking
he had to
about?
cover his face, though.
Good morning, Kathy and Marilyn and Tim and whoever might be with those folks.
Good morning, Jane and Bill.
And Ruth. Hi, Ruth.
Good morning. I'm just trying to get set up. Sorry, I'm almost late.
You're doing fine.
Okay.
Clyde, how are you, Clyde?
I'm not on completely, but I'm on partially.
That could be said of all of us.
Are we really here? Where's here?
Good question.
Well, in just a moment, we're going to all get muted and we'll begin worship with the prelude.
rich display of majesty, the very stones are moved to shout. So much to sing about, once orphaned and alone. How could I dare believe the news that you would come to live and die for me, and so make sure my welcome home. So much to sing about, your wisdom, might, and love, that even 80 and 10 are not enough to count your gifts and search beneath the surface of your treasure trove. So much to sing about, all I have seen and heard, your glory in my talents' use, my best reward. That others hear what I have seen, and sing with me. It is the God.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to worship at First Congregational Church of Minnesota, a United Church of Christ congregation. We are a progressive Christian community that gathers to listen, speak, and act in a spirit of compassion, justice, and stewardship. Wherever you are on your journey of life and faith, you're welcome here. This morning, I'm really excited that Reverend Laura Cannata is joining us as our guest preacher. Laura is the Justice Minister at Robbinsdale Parkway UCC. Her work focuses on justice for people with disabilities and mental health concerns. Laura, we're so pleased that you're with us. Would you just like to say hello?
Hello, everyone. My name is Reverend Laura Cannata, and I'm, like Jane said, I'm here to speak today. And this, you can't really see it because we're on Zoom, but I thought I'd show you the stole that was made for me by Don Carlson Kahn at Robbinsdale Parkway United Church of Christ. It has different disability symbols on it. So this is for brain damage or mental health. This is for a blind person or someone with a cane. This is the wheelchair symbol. And then this is a sign language symbol. Very excited to be here today.
Thank you so much, Laura. After the service today, I just wanted to mention that we'll have a few minutes to be in dialogue with Laura about her sermon or about any of the other wisdom that she carries in her life, which is just really significant. And so you can be thinking about the questions you might have for her or the ways that you're responding to her message, knowing that we'll have that time to talk to each other. You can find a link in the bulletin. You can find a link to view our bulletin and follow along with the service on our website, which is firstchurchmn.org. And we'll also show all of the songs and the responses on the screen this morning. If you have a prayer request today, please send a message in the chat on Zoom or by leaving a comment on the live stream. We'll be asking everybody who's on Zoom to remain muted this morning during the service, except for in a moment when we have our greeting time and during the Lord's Prayer. We'll all be unmuted at that time. As we worship together today, may the peace of Christ be with you all.
And also with
So
you.
with you.
And also with you.
And also with you.
Let's greet.
Everybody.
Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Good morning.
Did I hear Marguerite?
Yes,
Yeah, hi, Marguerite.
Rita's here.
Good morning.
Hi,
Marguerite.
Marguerite. It's good to see you.
Hi. Hi.
Hi, Kathy.
Oh, how you say, and
Hi,
also with
Kathy.
you? Yes.
Melissa.
Hi.
Hi,
Hi,
Melissa.
Jean.
Hello,
Hi,
everyone.
Hi, Barbara.
Now you can talk, but I guess it's kind of quiet, isn't it? I guess where you get.
The Body of God, a meditation by Becca Anderson.
Imagine the body of God. Imagine it with all the genders and races and physical descriptions of the world.
God is male and female, and both and neither and all. God is black and red and olive and tan. God has hair in long braids, slanted eyes, flat nose, big lips, long beard, curvy body, long arms, short legs.
God wears flowing dresses and blue jeans and saris and turbans and tuxedos and lots of jewelry. God has tattoos of every animal of the world and a single heart-shaped stud in their right ear.
And God has every ability and every disability in the world. God walks, God limps, God rolls, God crawls. God gets where God needs to be, gets to us, however God can.
God's mind works with the speed and sometimes the randomness of ADHD. God feels pain with the depths of depression and energy like an episode of mania. God hears voices, the voices of all people and all living things.
God has no one way of solving problems. Sometimes God moves from step to step with the most analytic of minds. Sometimes God makes great intuitive leaps that cannot be explained. Sometimes God gets stuck in a loop because the present, whether good or bad, is the time where God lives.
God paints with their feet and reads with their hands. God can dance by swaying and shuffling and sing by making noises that are not words, but express emotions that words cannot.
God is too busy reaching out to us to be concerned that they cannot see. God is too busy feeling the rhythms of music in their bones to worry about what it sounds like. God is too busy loving with all God's arrhythmic heart to be anything but grateful for the body they have.
Is it any wonder that we have trouble grasping God when God's body does not move the way we expect a body to move?
Is it any wonder we have trouble understanding God when God speaks with the slurred words of cerebral palsy?
Is it any wonder that we cannot comprehend God, who bears the chronic pain of the suffering of the world?
How can we come closer to this being beyond our comprehension, this body-mind that meets none of our expectations?
By freeing ourselves of expectations.
By searching for God in the unique body minds of our fellow human beings.
By seeking to understand that which challenges us and confuses us and frightens us.
By accepting ourselves and the body minds that make us who we are.
Irenaeus, a Greek bishop of the 2nd century, once said, "The glory of God is a human being fully alive."
When we pray to love all bodies and minds, to be both broken and whole at once, we are praying to be more like God.
Praying many names, beautiful and good, celebrating parable and story, holiness in glory, living, loving God. Hail and Hosanna, bring many names, strong Mother God, working night and day, planning all the wonders of creation, setting each equation, genius at play. Hail and Hosanna, strong Mother God, warm Father God, hugging every child, feeling all the strains of human living, caring and forgiving, till we're reconciled. Hail and Hosanna, warm Father God, old aching God, gray with endless care, calmly piercing evil's new disguises, glad of good surprises, wiser than despair. Hail and Hosanna, old aching God, young growing God, eager on the move, saying no to falsehood and unkindness, crying out for justice, giving all you have. Hail and Hosanna, young growing God, great living God, never fully known, joyful darkness far beyond our seeing, closer yet than breathing, everlasting home. Hail and Hosanna, great living God.
Scripture, John chapter 9, verses 1 through 41. As Jesus walked along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" Jesus said,
Neither this man nor his parents sinned. He was born blind, so that God's works might be revealed in him. We must work the works of the one who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world.
When Jesus had said this, he spat on the ground and made mud with the saliva and spread the mud on the man's eyes, saying to him,
Go, wash in the pool of Siloam, which means sent.
Then he went and washed and came back, able to see. The neighbors and those who had seen him before as a beggar began to ask, Is this not the man who used to sit and beg? Some were saying, It is he. Others were saying, No, but it is someone like him. He kept saying,
I am the man.
But they kept asking him, Then how were your eyes opened? He answered,
The man called Jesus made mud, spread it on my eyes, and said to me, Go to Siloam and wash. Then I went and washed and received my sight.
They said to him, Where is he? He said,
I do not know.
They brought to the religious leaders, called Pharisees, the man who had formerly been blind. Now it was a Sabbath day when Jesus made the mud and opened his eyes. Then the Pharisees also began to ask him how he had received his sight. He said to them,
He put mud on my eyes. Then I washed, and now I see.
Some of the Pharisees said, This man is not from God, for he does not observe the Sabbath. But others said, How can a man who is a sinner perform such signs? And they were divided. So they said again to the blind man, What do you say about him? It was your eyes he opened. He said,
He is a prophet.
The religious leaders did not believe that he had been blind and had received his sight until they called the parents of the man who had received his sight and asked them, Is this your son who you say was born blind? Then how does he now see? His parents answered, We know that this is our son and that he was born blind, but we do not know how it is that he now sees, nor do we know who opened his eyes. Ask him, he is of age. He will speak for himself. His parents said this because they were afraid of the religious leaders, for they had already agreed that anyone who confessed Jesus to be the Messiah would be put out of the synagogue. Therefore, his parents said, He is of age, ask him. So for the second time, they called the man who had been blind, and they said to him, Give glory to God. We know that this man is a sinner. He answered,
I do not know whether he is a sinner. One thing I do know, that though I was blind, now I see.
They said to him, What did he do to you? How did he open your eyes? He answered them,
I have told you already, and you would not listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you also want to become his disciples?
Then they reviled him, saying, You are his disciple, but we are disciples of Moses. We know that God has spoken to Moses, but as for this man, we do not know where he comes from. The man answered,
Here is an astonishing thing. You do not know where he comes from, and yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not listen to sinners, but God does listen to one who worships God and obeys God's will. Never since the world began has it been heard that anyone opened the eyes of a person born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing.
They answered him, You were born entirely in sins, and are you trying to teach us? And they drove him out. Jesus heard that they had driven him out, and when he found him, he said,
Do you believe in the Son of Humanity? The man answered.
And who is he, sir? Tell me so that I may believe in him.
You have seen him, and the one speaking with you is he.
Lord, I believe.
And he worshiped him. Jesus said,
I came into this world for judgment, so that those who do not see may see, and those who do see may become blind.
Some of the Pharisees near him heard this and said to him, "Surely we are not blind, are we?" Jesus said to them,
If you were blind, you would not have sin. But now that you say, we see, your sin remains.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to do a sermon on John 9. There are many ways to examine this passage. Make sure you tell me if you can hear me. Today, we are doing some exegesis from the point of view of the marginalized. Many people see this healing tale as a more progressive way to look at disability, and in some ways it is, while in others, it's not. The question I want you to examine when you study this passage is, who has agency? Who has power? To be completely honest, this passage is a mixed bag for those with disabilities. But let's start at the beginning. As he went along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" This was a common question to ask in biblical times. This man was blind, he was different, he was other, he was set apart from society, a beggar on the streets. Of course, all these things would be equated with sin. The only question was, who sinned, the man or his parents? Now, before we get to Jesus' answer, let's jump ahead to today. Most people today do not go around outright equating disability with sin. But the questions asked are no less rude, intrusive, and deeply inappropriate. The most common one is, what's wrong with you? Notice the question is not what happened or why are you this way, why are you different, but what's wrong with you? Why are you defective? I read an article by a disabled person who said his go-to response to that question became, "Nothing's wrong with me. By the way, how's your sex life?" At first, that may seem like an odd response, but his point was, if you get to ask me something so deeply personal, I get to ask an intimate and inappropriate question in return. Common sense would ask, why are you asking disabled people these questions, especially when you've just met them going down the street? The answer has to do with agency. When you have a disability, you are not given agency. You must take it. Able-bodied adults ask these types of questions. Children are another story, they get a pass. Because deep down in the able-bodied adult subconscious, they think they have a right to know everything about the disabled person because they are in a position of power. And in asking these questions, they are assuming that they have the agency in this situation. Now, often it is not done out of malice, but out of fear. If they, the able-bodied person, can get to the root cause of the disability, they feel, again, deep down inside, subconsciously, that they can prevent it from happening to them. Now, while Jesus' answer deviates from the disability equals sin model, a point in this passage's favor, it's still not all that helpful. Jesus' answer, neither this man nor his parents sinned, but this happened so that the works of God might be revealed in him. Now, at least we have a direct quote from Jesus saying disability doesn't equal sin. On the other hand, making someone disabled to show God's power is a complex answer that doesn't leave room for agency for the person with the disability. It also makes God the cause of some suffering. And we know that only good comes from God. God is with us in our suffering, but doesn't cause our suffering. In the next line, Jesus meets the blind man and puts mud and spit on his eyes and tells him to go wash in the pool. The man does this and is cured. His blindness goes away. Of course, he goes and washes in the pool. If someone put mud and spit in my eyes, the first thing I'm going to do is wash them out. Notice, unlike most of the other healing stories, the man does not ask to be cured. Jesus, like many people today, assumes that the man would just be better off sighted. Non-disabled people assume that disabled people would be better off without their disability. I'm not going to lie, in some cases it's true. Personally, I would be better off without my debilitating pain. And on the other hand, I wouldn't change my height for anything. It's all a matter of perspective. Now, I'm not accusing Jesus of ableism, but I am accusing the biblical writers and interpreters. As we begun this story, the man had no agency. As the story progresses, so does his agency. When asked if he was the blind beggar, he replies, yes. But his neighbors don't believe him. The religious folk don't believe him either. They even go so far as to ask his parents whether he was born blind and how he has come to see. These two things are familiar to me as a disabled person. Oftentimes, my authority or experience are questioned and overlooked based on my disability status. It comes from knowing more about my medical conditions and still not being listened to at the doctors. It also occurs when people talk to my companions instead of myself, thus infantilizing me. So, I've listed mostly negative points with this passage so far, and overall, there are quite a few of them. But there's a turning point right here. When the Pharisees asked the man's parents if he was blind, and how is it that he now sees, the response is thus: we know he is our son, the parents answered, and we know he was born blind. But how he can see now, or who opened his eyes, we don't know. Ask him. He is of age. He will speak for himself. Now, the line right after says the reason his parents said this was because they were afraid of being kicked out of the synagogue by the Pharisees. But what if there was another reason? What if his parents were trying to give him agency? I cannot count the number of times my parents, my friends, or my colleagues have had to say the same thing. One day, I was at the grocery store with my boyfriend, and this lady comes up to ask how old I am. He replies, she's an adult, ask her yourself. He must have repeated that 5 times. He was trying to give me agency. Unfortunately, like the Pharisees, she would only hear what fit her narrative of who or what I was, instead of the truth. In her mind's eyes, I was either a young child or cognitively impaired, and nothing anyone else said could change that. From here on out, the blind man speaks with more agency and even a bit of sass. His reply to their continued posturing is, I have told you already, and you did not listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you want to become his disciples too? Clearly, the Pharisees wanted nothing to do with Jesus, so this reply was like a slap in their faces. His final response to them is to stand both for himself and Jesus. The man answered, now that is remarkable. You don't know where he comes from, yet he opened my eyes. We know that